Jayanilo Premadhana Karuna Prachur Heno Prabhu Kota Gela Acharya Thakur Kaha Mora Swarup Rupa Kaha Sanatan Kaha Dasa Raghunatha Patita Pavan Kaha Mora Bhakta Juga Kaha Kaviraj Eka Kali Kotha Gela Goranataraj Pashane Kutibo Mata Annale Pashibo Gauranga Gunera Nidhi Kota Gele Pabo Se Sabba Sangira Sange Je Koilo Bilas Se Sangana Paya Kande Narottama Das Jayanilo Premadana Karuna Prachur Heno Prabhu Kota Gela Acharya Thakur Jaya Vaishnav Thakur Vaishnav Thakur Vaishnav Thakur Jaya Vaishnav Thakur He who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with compassion and mercy. Where is such a personality as Srinivas Acharya gone? Where are my Sarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishna Das Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against a rock and enter into fire, Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the treasure, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees, in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. So today is the glorious disappearance day of Srila Madhavendra Puri, and we will now read a little bit about him from the Samadhi's book. Before Lord Chaitanya appeared, he sent his eternal associates like Sri Advaita Acharya, Sri Jagannath Mishra, Shachi Mata, Madhavendra Puri, Ishwara Puri to earth. Sri Madhavendra Puri took initiation from Sri Lakshmipati Tirtha in the Madhvacharya Sampradaya. He had many disciples, but Sri Advaita Acharya and Sri Ishwara were the chief disciples of Madhavendra Puri. In one way or another, all the Vaishnavas in Bengal and Chaitramandal, Jagannath Puri, were connected with Sri Madhavendra Puri. After Lord Chaitanya came, many of his disciples joined Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. Quote, Madhavendra Puri's body was completely full of divine love, so were that of his followers. So were those of his followers. He displayed uncommon love of God. Seeing a dark blue-green cloud, he would fall down unconscious. Day and night, he was intoxicated from drinking the ambrosia of Krishna Prema. This is probably from Chaitanya Bhagavatam by Vrindavan Das Thakur. After making an extensive pilgrimage of Bharata Bhumi, India, he passed his life in Vrindavan and Orissa. He began the restoration work of Vrindavan that Sri Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis continued later. Wandering from grove to grove, remembering Radha Krishna's sweet Vrindavan pastimes, Madhavendra Puri would faint in ecstasy. In a dream, Sri Gopal ordered Madhavendra Puri to uncover a buried Gopal deity and install him atop Govardhan Hill. Madhavendra Puri celebrated Gopal's installation with an Annakuta, a grand festival offering a mountain of foodstuffs to Krishna. This Annakuta festival, also called Govardhan Puja, is one of the most important Vaishnava festivals in Vrindavan, India, and around the world. The original Gopal deity, known as Sri Nathji, is now worshipped in Nathdwar, Rajasthan. Madhavendra Puri introduced the conception of Madhurya Bhava, conjugal love, into the Madhvacharya Sampradaya. Madhavendra Puri sowed the seed of Prema Bhakti, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became the towering tree, dropping honey-sweet fruits of prema upon everyone. Madhavendra Puri also revealed Viraha Bhava, the mood of love, relish, and separation from God. His branch of the Madhva sect distinguished itself by this ecstatic love of God. It is known as the Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. In Jagannath Puri, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed an intense mood of Viraha Bhava, love and separation. This increased unlimitedly when the Lord heard verses from Srimad Bhagavatam's 10th canto, the Krishna Karnamrita, the Gita Govinda, and the love poems of Chandidas and Vidyapati. Mahaprabhu's Viraha, or separation mood, begins with a single verse spoken by Madhavendra Puri, his Param Guru, grand preceptor. Okay, those who know this verse can sing along. Aidi nandayad nata he, matada nata kadabaloki se, vidiyam todalok katadam, dayata brahm tikin karomyaham. O compassionate Lord of the poor. Okay, I'm going to read Prabhupada's translation. Sorry. O my Lord, O most merciful Master, O Master of Mathura, because this is Radharani speaking. When shall I see you again? Because of my not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. O most beloved one, what shall I do now? CC Madhya 4, 197. Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj says that as the diamond Kaustubha jewel is the most precious amongst all rare valuable jewels, so this shloka is the Rasa Kavya, the best verse in the entire treasury of rasa poetry. Actually, this verse was spoken by Srimati Radharani herself. It was Radha's pathetic cry to Shyama Sundar, who had gone to Mathura, leaving her alone, desperate in Vrindavan. Radharani's mercy brought this same verse from the mouth of Madhavendra Puri. Reciting even a few words of this shloka would tear open the door of Mahaprabhu's ecstatic love, making him swoon in ecstatic ecstasy, falling unconscious. Feeling intense separation from Krishna, Madhavendra Puri constantly chanted this verse when departing this world. Krishnadas Kaviraj says in the CC that with this verse, Madhavendra Puri teaches devotees how to achieve Krishna prema by cultivating intense feelings of separation from Krishna. Gaudiya Vaishnavas accept that this verse expresses the essence of the mood of separation. The Gaudiya Sampradaya teaches that worship of Radha and Krishna in separation represents the highest level of devotional service. At this stage of realization, the devotee feels completely, quote, vacant in the world in the absence of Krishna, close quote. A moment without Madhava feels like a millennium. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always swam in the ocean of Divyon Mada Mahabhava, the madness of love in the highest level. The mad and ecstatic emotions known by Sri Radha in Brahmari Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam 10:47. That's the famous song to the bee when Uddhava visited Vrindavan. In this verse, Madhavendra Puri discloses similar emotions. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas conclude that the monsoon shower of ecstatic love exhibited by Lord Gauranga during his manifest pastimes began with Madhavendra Puri. It then came through Ishwara Puri, who played the role of Lord Chaitanya's spiritual master. Madhavendra Puri's samadhi is in Ramuna, Orissa, near the temple of Chirach or Gopinath. Shri Madhavendra Puri ki jai. Okay, now we'll proceed to the Bhagavatam. Sorry, I thought I had this bookmarked properly. So we read one verse yesterday without a purport, right? So this is 16. Did he read 15 too? Yeah. Okay. Oh, this is about getting free of the troubles of bad dreams. I think that's mentioned this one too. Okay. Narayana namaskritya narang chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudire. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta prayasha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavatyuttama shloke Bhakti bhavati naistaki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service unto the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in the best of songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 10th day of March 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Canto 8, Withdrawal of the Cosmic Creations. Chapter 4, Gajendra returns to the spiritual world, text number 16. Idam aha hari prito Gajendram kurusattama shrinvatam sarva bhutanam sarva bhutamayo vibhu idamahari prito Gajendram Kurusattama Shrinvatang Sarvabhutanam Sarvabhutamayo Vibhu Idamaha Prito Gajendram Kurusattama Shrinvatang Sarvabhutanam Sarvabhutamayo Vibhu Idamahari 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 Prito Gajendram Kurusattama Shrinvatang Sarvabhutanam Sarvabhutamayo Vibhu. Come on, this is an easy one. Idamahari Prito Gajendram Kurusattama Tam Sarvabhutanam Sarvabhutamayo Vibhu. Anyone online?
Idam ahari prito
Idamahari Prito
Gajendram Kuru Satama
Gajendram Kurusattama
Srinivatam Sarvabhutanam
Shrinvatang Sarvabhutanam
Sarvabhutamayo Vibhuhu
Sarvabhutamayo Vibhu. Idam, this. Aha, said. Harihi, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pritaha, being pleased. Gajendram, unto Gajendra. Kurusattama, O best of the Kuru dynasty. Shrinvatam, hearing. Sarvabhutanam, in the presence of everyone. Sarvabhutamayaha, the all-pervading personality of Godhead. Vibhu, the great. Translation. So this is Shukadev speaking. O best of the Kuru dynasty, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the super soul of everyone, being thus pleased, addressed Gajendra in the presence of everyone there. He spoke the following blessings. All right, so I'm going to chant the first of these verses, and then I'll read the translation. Shri Bhagavan Vacha, Ye Mam Tvam Chasadas Chedam, Gidikanda Dakananam, Vetaki Chakabenu Nam, Gulmani Sudaparapan. Okay. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, freed from all sinful reactions are those who rise from bed at the end of night, early in the morning, and fully concentrate their minds with great attention upon my form, your form, this lake, this mountain, the caves, the gardens, the cane plants, the bamboo plants, the celestial trees, the residential quarters of me, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, the 3 peaks of Trikuta mountain made of gold, silver, and iron, my very pleasing abode, the ocean of milk, the white island, Shvetadweep, which is always brilliant with spiritual rays, my mark of Shivats, the Kaustubha gem, my Vaijayanti garland, my club, Kaumaudaki, my Sudarshan disc, and Panchajanya conch shell, my bearer, Garuda, the king of the birds, my bed, Sheshanaga, my expansion of energy, the goddess of fortune, Lord Brahma, Narada Muni, Lord Shiva, Prahlad, my incarnations like Matsya, Kurma, and Varaha, my unlimited all auspicious activities, which yield piety to him who hears them. The sun, the moon, the fire, the mantra Omkar, the absolute truth, the total material energy, the cows and Brahmins, devotional service, the wives of Soma and Kashyapa, who are all daughters of King Daksha, the rivers Ganges, Saraswati, Nanda, and Yamuna, or Kalindi, the elephant Airavata, Dhruva Maharaj, the 7 rishis, and the pious human beings. Okay, still no purport. Text 25. Ye mam stuvan janenanga pratibudya nishatya ye tesham pranatya ye chaham dadami vipalam gatim. My dear devotee, unto those who rise from bed at the end of night and offer me the prayers offered by you, I give an eternal residence in the spiritual world at the end of their lives. Continuing, Sri Shukadeva Goswami continued, after giving this instruction, the Lord, who is known as Rishikesha, bugled with his Panchajanya conch shell, in this way pleasing all the demigods, headed by Lord Brahma. Then he mounted the back of his carrier, Garuda. Thus end the Bhagavatam purports of the 8th canto, 4th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled, Gajendra Returns to the Spiritual World. Okay. Boy, there's not many purports here. What should I do? Going on into the next.
Is it true that you can't give class without reading a purport? Is that
Well, I don't think it's a hard and fast rule, although I've always done that. But all right, I'll just. Thus end the Bhagavatam purports of the 8th canto, 4th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Gajendra Returns to the Spiritual World. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance. My spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, what lessons to get from this pastime? One of the lessons I was thinking about as we were reading in previous classes was how we find that processes of meditation, which is a bona fide process, Krishna teaches it in the 6th chapter, but it's said not to be suitable for this age. Arjuna rejected it, and therefore Krishna said, don't worry, yoginama bisarvesham magatina antaratmana, one who is always thinking me within his heart, worshiping me with great and transcendental faith is the best of yogis. And we know that in this age, Lord Chaitanya came for 2 reasons. One we were discussing in the talks about Madhavendra Puri here was to, as mentioned last night, to relish love of himself in the most ecstatic form from Radharani. He couldn't do that in the spiritual world. You know, there's a whole verse right near the beginning of the CC, how he, desiring to understand the glories of Radharani's love, the pleasure she felt by loving him and by feeling his love for him, and his own qualities from her point of view, he came in the mood of Radharani as Lord Chaitanya with the complexion of it. But he also had, very prominently, the external reason, which was to spread the Sankirtan movement and save the people of this Kali Yuga from the Maya. And so, to that end, he preached the chanting of the holy name as the main process. And even we know when he went to Benares, and right after taking sannyas, and he started chanting in the streets, and he was criticized by the Mayavadis there. This chapter 7 of the Adi Leela. And then to mollify his devotees, who were very disturbed by all the blasphemy that they were hearing from these Mayavadis, he agreed to meet with them. And they wanted to know, why you just, doing this sentimental business of chanting in the street when you should be studying Vedanta Sutra with us like that, So he said then, although I don't think it's true, I haven't found a confirmation that Ishwara actually did this, that Ishwara told me that I'm not eligible to study the Vedanta Sutra and that I should just chant Hare Krishna. And he quoted the famous verse, which we can all chant together. Hare Rama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, nasteva, nasteva gatadanyata. That in this age of Kali, there's no other way, no other way, no other way for advancement and reach perfection but chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name. And all that repetition is by way of emphasis. Very important verse for us, foundational. So at that point he said that, Ishwara Puri said he's not eligible. But if you go look at the history of Lord Chaitanya and Ishwara Puri as it's given in the CC and also Chaitanya Bhagavat, Ishwara Puri, understanding and knowing that Lord Chaitanya was Nimai Pandit, was highly learned and had already defeated Keshava Kashmiri, and he was, that he asked him to edit his book. He had written a book. And Lord Chaitanya refused, on the grounds that, the disciples should not find faults in the, And Ishwara Puri, I think, ordered him to do it. I think he finally did it. But that would indicate that that whole idea that, you're not eligible, you're not, advanced enough to study the Vedanta Sutra, was just a ploy that he was saying, saying in his conversation with the Prakashananda Saraswati. Because then he finally did speak on the Vedanta Sutra, and he proved to them that it actually preaches devotional service, not Mayavad. That's a mistaken interpretation by Shankaracharya for a very important purpose of reestablishing the authority of the Vedas, which Buddha had neglected. That whole story, that Buddha came and it was being misused, the Vedas instructions on sacrifice. They were using that as an excuse to open slaughterhouses for cows. So in order to save the cows and preach ahimsa, he neglected the Vedas. And he just had his eightfold way and so forth, and like that. So, but without the authority of the Vedas, it had to be reestablished so that people could actually advance. And so we have acharyas like Madhvacharya and Ramanujacharya who defeated the Mayavadis and gave the real interpretation of Vedanta Sutra, and which of course culminates in Bhagavatam. This is why Lord Chaitanya did not either write a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra or have one of his disciples write it. That wasn't what he asked Rupa and Sanatan and Raghunath to write. Because we already had the Srimad Bhagavatam. And yet later on, the past time in Jaipur, there were some priests who were deriding the whole sampradaya because you don't have a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. So at that time, they wanted Vishwanath Chakrabarti to write it, but he was a little too old and elderly, so he told his disciple, Baladeva Jabushan, to write it, which he went to Jaipur, prayed to the deity. The Govinda deity was there. He'd been rescued from Vrindavan, and he'd been installed there. He's still there, very wonderful. And he asked him for the empowerment to do it, and the Golan came down, And he so much appreciated the inspiration of Govinda that he calls it Govinda Bhashya. I'm just moving the pen, but he's actually writing it, giving me the inspiration. It's wonderful. So we do have a commentary. But the point I'm making is that Lord Chaitanya, that story about Ishwara Puri telling him, I haven't confirmed. I don't want, if there is someone out there who can tell, show that Ishwara Puri actually did tell Lord Chaitanya, you're not smart enough to study the Vedanta Sutra, you should just chant Hare Krishna. But I think he was just, working on the Mayavadis. So in any case, so now bringing it back to the Bhagavatam here. So we have the case of Indrajumna, who was meditating. Right? He's a devotee. He's meditating on Krishna or Vishnu like that. But because of that, he's in samadhi. When Agastya Muni comes by, and this is not unique in the story of the Bhagavatam, he doesn't offer him proper greetings. May not even have known he was there. He's in the samadhi, And this was taken as a great offense by Agastya Muni, and he cursed him to become Gajendra, becoming the king of the elephants. So then he was delivered here in the story. And we find in Bharat also went alone. See, this is the thing, you're going alone. You're not with devotees. You're alone doing your meditation. But he had already risen up to bhava. right? Bharat. He left, he didn't wait till he got old in order to go to the forest. You know, he was young. He left his young wife and children and everything. And there's a verse about that, which slips my mind at the moment. So he was, Prabhupada, it says there in the book, he was at the level of Bhava Bhakti, you know. But when he heard this commotion in the river, he's a little stream nearby, they always choose a stream. He saw this horrific scene of a lion or a tiger, I forget which it was chasing after a pregnant deer, you know, and the deer takes shelter of the little stream, jumps in. And apparently lions and tigers, they don't go in the stream. So she was safe in that regard, but she was panicked and she swam across, and by the time she got over, she just died on the other side after giving birth. So here's this little fawn, you know, it's a baby deer, with nobody to take care of her or him. It doesn't say what gender she is. And so naturally, as a kind Vaishnava, he goes and helps the deer, you know, gives him a little feeding. You know. And because of that, he developed a good, strong attachment for the deer. And the animal, of course, was completely dependent on him, saw him as his mother, you know, and everything. So there was this tremendous bond there. And that was affecting his bhajan. You know, he had transferred some of the kind-hearted Vaishnava, you know. But the point is, he didn't have anyone else with him. So part of the lesson of Bharat, of course, he took birth as a deer, but he was an advanced deer, and he didn't want to hang out with the other deers and get into Maya, so he would just, you know, stand outside the little ashram where Vaishnavas were speaking. He would get the Krishna Katha. Eventually, of course, he succeeded, came back as Jad Bharat. But the point is that even in the Bhagavatam, we see that this meditative yoga, which is a bona fide system, is very dangerous. Because we had the two examples there, and also even you know, Maharaj Pariksit. Of course, this was kind of the other side, is that he came across, and I forget his name, the father of Shringi. I forget his name. But he was a great sage, and he was in meditation. What is it? Somakarishi? Okay. And he didn't show proper deference to the king. This is the emperor. Pariksit came. It was very uncharacteristic. It's mentioned in the Bhagavatam. For Pariksit to show any offense, you know, to the great Brahmins, he was always very. But because he was in distress and he was tired and he was, you know, very thirsty, and he couldn't get it. The offense was taking a dead snake and putting it around his neck. And then the problem was that his son Shringi heard about that. And this is how Kali Yuga, he had the power of Brahman, he was trained, but he didn't have the discrimination. He was just a child. So he flew off the handle and cursed Pariksit to die in 7 days by the snake bird. Now Pariksit, being who he was, just as this whole verse that we've been studying, Tatte nukampam susamikshimano, the seminal verse, is that when something happens that is a reversal, some disease, you know, we get, or whatever happens in our life, it may be very painful or it's a setback. So we don't throw up our hands. What is this? I've been coming to Mangalarti for the last 6 months and chanting Hare Krishna, taking prasadam. Why does this happen to me? You know, I mean, it says Krishna protects one from other. No. This verse says no. One should understand that this is due to some past activity, and I'm getting the result now, and that Krishna is minimizing the result. This is another important part of the verse as a purport. I don't know what's in the Sanskrit, but that it could have been so much worse, but Krishna is minimizing it. Oh, thank you, Krishna. I was scheduled to lose my hand, but instead I just cut my finger while cutting the vegetables in the kitchen. You see. So this is such an important verse because it enables one to maintain one's positive feeling toward the Lord, rather than this, blaming. And the strong contrast is, Prabhupada would tell the story of the ladies in Germany during the war. Near the end of the war, everyone was drafted, even the old men, what to speak of the kids and the husbands, they're all gone. All the men, important men. So they're going to church every day, praying, please, please send my husband back, send my father back, my son and my brother. And many of them didn't come back, or if they came back, they were grievously injured and damaged. So they became atheists. They're praying fervently. They're very, they said, what kind of God is this? So that's the order supplier God, which we're not supposed to. We're always meant to try to find out what we can do for Krishna. So there's a hazard there, But in the process of devotional service, centering on the congregational chanting of the holy name, and otherwise the association of devotees, you do hear about devotees going and chanting in solitude for a long time. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he vowed to chant 1 billion names of Krishna, and so it was almost for 9 years, I think. He chanted those 300,000 names that Haridas did every day, 16, 17 hours a day, And at the same time, he was doing other things, amazingly. Meanwhile, he would get visits from Gaura Das Babaji. Famously, he would come see him, But the point is, there is a place for that. And Gaura was famous for chanting in solitude. He didn't want to be bothered. He would sit by a latrine so that, unserious visitors would be put off, But still, the process that we have is centered on this congregational chanting and sadhu sangha, satam prasangam, mama virya sambido, bhavanti ritkana rasaya nakata, tadjoshanad ashu apavarga bhatmandi shraddha ratir bhaktu anukramishati. It's a very foundational verse. This is part of what I call the sadhu sangashtika. It's the teachings of Kapila Dev to his mother, Devahuti. And right near the beginning of the teachings, from verse 20 to 27 of the 25th chapter, he's describing the qualities of, first of all, the importance of being a sadhu, is that the prasangam madanam pashamatmana kavayo vadusa hesha sadhu shukato moksha dvaram apavatam. Prasangam means a strong attachment. This word prasanga comes up again in the same word, tatam prasangan. But the strong attachment for a material thing, ajadam pasham, that these ropes and knots in the heart, those learned devotees know that these strong ropes can be cut only by the association of a sadhu. That the attraction or affection for all these people and things that just keep us in Maya is counteracted and cured by attraction and affection and association with great sadhus. And who's the sadhu? The Tikshra Karunika he described. I won't go through the whole thing. But the famous verse is he's tolerant. How did he get that way? By being a devotee. So association is key. Association is key. And this, when you think about it, this is the foundation of the importance of book distribution. Because these books, as Prabhupada points out, I always listen to classes of Prabhupada in the early days in the storefront. He's giving classes from Bhagavad Gita. No one has a Bhagavad Gita. He's got the only one, and it's not in English. So he's giving the classes, but he's pointing out that, and he named the society, it's an international society for Krishna consciousness, because getting together, and when you hear Krishna's words from the Bhagavad Gita, you're hearing directly from Krishna. Just as the name is non-different from Krishna, his verses he speaks in the Bhagavad Gita are non-different from Krishna. So by giving someone a book, or selling them a book, it gets in their hands, they're getting the association of Srila Prabhupada and Krishna and all the other great saints who appear there. This is the greatest thing you can do. So, and it's also how we can become purified, by realizing that, this is how I can actually advance, by getting the association of these great souls and purifying my intelligence with the knowledge there. And in this way, advancing. But here we see this whole, what is he saying? The Supreme Lord, the last verse of the chapter, I think. Freed from all sinful reaction are those who rise from bed at the end of night, early in the morning, and fully concentrate their minds with great attention upon my form, your form, this leg. So in other words, they meditate, they read. You can read right here, this pastime. But Prabhupada didn't give us that. He didn't come and hand out a sheet with all of these things. Because the very same equivalent is there from coming to the morning program, seeing the deity, chanting the holy name, and the Gurvashtaka. I like to point out, some of you may not know, there's an 8th verse of this Gurvashtaka. It's written as an Ashtaka, which we don't sing. But if you go to the songbook and you look right at the beginning, there's the translation of that verse, which basically says, those who rise early in the morning in Mangalartik and sing this song, then they go back to Godhead. Basically, it promises going back to Godhead. So it's a tremendous meditation. This is why I encourage all of you, spend a little time, go over the word-by-word meanings, so that when you sing it, that meaning is coming out. You're actually understanding what is samsara, davan, oh anala, that's a fire. Oh, davan is a forest fire, oh yeah. Burning in the forest fire of samsara, lidha loka. People in general, everyone is suffering in that. But the spiritual master, Charnaya, he's rescuing us from that. How? By pouring down. He's like a cloud of mercy pouring down, the mercy in the form of the holy name, his association, the books, everything that he's given, the prasadam, Krishna conscious movement. So the first, our first series of verses we had a theme on was gratitude, I think, wasn't it? When we started doing these themes of the Sunday lecture.
I think January was determination, and then February was gratitude.
Okay, February was gratitude. And as soon as I heard, I think I didn't give a class, but I would have emphasized that Mangalarti, the song, and not that you have. You can meditate on that song without going to Mangalartik. The point is that this is something that we should be thinking of every day. How fortunate we are, how thankful we should be, how grateful we should be that Prabhupada took the trouble, at the last point of his life, as he called it the fag end of his life, to take up this order. He had tried to do it in India, but it didn't work out, and he was, so he came and said, "Oh, I'm going to go to America." So he did, and we should be so thankful that he took the trouble to do that. That should, and naturally, what's the natural mood if you're thankful to someone? You want to try to reciprocate. And he only has one thing. You just become serious in devotional service and try to preach. That's the whole idea. Give it to someone else. Be a conduit or a channel for the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and all the acharyas and Krishna, and that way you please them the most, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, and will also advance the most. So this whole idea, to think, okay, you can meditate on this whole pastime, and then you'll get free. Okay, that works. But we have other, meditations that we do. We want to read this and get inspired, but the process of that Prabhupada gave, the morning program and the chanting and the Mangalarti, deity worship, everything is perfectly suited for us. And one of the best things is that you don't have to be a Brahmin to start. That's a big thing, because if you study the Vedic literature, Manu Samhita and others, if you're not a Brahmin, you're not supposed to hear the Vedas or try to chant them. You're not eligible. But that's why Lord Chaitanya says in the Shikshastika, right? Nam akari bahudani jasarva shaktis tattapita niyamitak smadanena kava. He says there's no niyamatak, there's no rules and regulations about who can hear and who can chant his holy name. It's open for everybody, and that's why we can do it. Otherwise, maybe you're born in an Indian family, maybe you're qualified, but you'd be sitting here alone. I don't think you did. You grew up in an Indian family too. But I mean, it's more than that. So that's, there's no hard and fast rule, and it's open for everyone. Every human being should chant. And we have so many verses in the Bhagavatam that's coming to mind. Aho badashra pachoto gariyan yajjigvagre vartate namatubhyam te pustapuste juhuvu sastaraya brahmanuchu nama gunanti yede. This verse is spoken by Devahuti to Kapila Dev. She's responding to his preaching and saying, oh, how wonderful it is. Aho means, wow, how wonderful. Aho bata, even if there's shrapacha. Who remembers what a shrapacha is? A shrapacha. Shwa. Shwa is a dog. And pacha is a cooker. And if you're going to cook the dog, you're going to eat the dog. So Shvapacha is a dog eater. Even the dog eaters, aho bada Shvapachoto gariyan, how glorious are they? Even the dog eaters, who upon the tip of whose tongue the holy name is dancing, they're chanting the holy name. That means that they're not restricted from doing it. Jivragre literally means the tip of the tongue. Vartate nama tubhyam, your name. She's speaking to Kapila Dev because she knows he's God, so he's his name. Nama tubhyam. In previous life or lives, they must have performed all kinds of austerities, studied all the Vedas, lived in the holy places and everything. And the result is they're chanting the holy name. So who knows? Somehow or other, we've come to the point where we can chant the holy name. So we should take it very seriously, take shelter of that holy name. And then all of this stuff will be revealed, And Prabhupada, he gave us the highest thing with the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I remember when I was working on the CC, and I think it was in the Adi Leela, no, it was in the Madhya Leela. I forget the chapter, third or fourth chapter, where Lord Chaitanya takes sannyas, and then it describes, how Lord Nityananda and Advaita kind of tricked him, and to come back to Navadvip and say goodbye to everybody, because he just wanted to go to Vrindavan. He was not eating or sleeping. He was 3 days. He just walked with Nityananda, but he hadn't really said farewell, and every devotees were just dying, in his absence. So there's a whole wonderful way in which they convinced him that the Ganges there was actually the Muna, that he was already in Vrindavan, And then Advaita comes in a rowboat, and then Charity said, "What are you doing here? How did you get here in Vrindavan?" They were in Vrindavan. So anyway, they said, "Please come with us," and they took him back. And so for days they had a festival, a lot of kirtan, and Mother Shachi would cook. She said, as long as as this festival goes on, let me cook for Nima. I said, "Okay, no problem, Mother Shachi, you do all the cooking." So finally she got him to promise that he would make Jagannath Puri his headquarters. So at least he'd get some news, because Jagannath Puri is not that far from Bengal. And she would get some news from him, about him, So he did that, and after traveling to South India and going to Vrindavan, he eventually settled there in Jagannath Puri. And I'm going to run out of juice here. Give me a second. So, and this separation mood that Madhavendra Puri taught, and I think already Matthias has learned the verse. I'm not going to ask him to chant it now, but he learned that Aidina Dayardanatehe. It's the same meter as Nadanang Nasundari. But I remember working on that chapter, and then we got to the point where now, he says, now I'm going to reveal the verse of Madhavendra Puri. This is the greatest kavya poetry, rasa poetry. And anyone who reads this verse is just like polishing a kaustubha jewel, a ruby, and it becomes more and more. So, whoa, where is this verse, Because I was into shlokas, even from early time. And finally the verse came out, and I immediately memorized it. But then it says, but only 3 people can understand the full import of this verse. Lord Chaitanya, and Radharani, and Madhavendra Puri. But with this verse, and Madhavendra Puri himself, he introduced this conjugal rasa into the Madhvacharya Sampradaya, which is what we're in. And so that's why Lord Chaitanya chose to take initiation within that Sampradaya. So all of this is coming down, and the importance of, now eventually, of course, Gajendra here is delivered, and he goes back to Godhead. But what a detour. They had to become an elephant and forget everything, and then finally he remembered it. This was a great blessing that the crocodile caught him, because it forced him to remember the prayer that he had learned in a previous life. So this is another theme here, and that is that reverses come, inevitable in being in the material world. Eventually old age comes. I talked to my friend in Alachua, with a lot of older devotees. And he tells me, "Oh, did you hear about this one, that one? This devotee was in his 80s and he passed away. And yeah, I knew him back in the 75 in LA, you know, so this is going on. So all of us, it's eventually going to happen. So we have to go through these difficulties in life. That's what it means to have a material body. But as they come, if we embrace this verse, you know, which is worth going over one more time. Tatte nukampam susamikshamano bunjana evatma kritam vipakam. Rid vag vapube vadadan namaste jivete yo mukti padesa dayabak. Now there's a whole pastime around this verse. Those who read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because it has the word mukti pade in the last line. So Lord Chaitanya chanted this verse, or Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he'd already been converted by Lord Chaitanya. He was the manager, the head of the Jagannath Puri temple, very learned Mayavadi. Lord Chaitanya converted him, you know, he became a great devotee. And when Lord Chaitanya presented this verse, he said, I can't stand to hear the word mukti. So he recited the verse, but instead of mukti bide, he said bhakti bide at the end. And Lord just said, you can't change the verses of the Bhagavatam, you know. So he convinced him, he showed that in this case, mukti bide means liberated in devotional service, you know, because devotional service includes liberation. Anyway, so what, in relation to this tatte nukampam verse, so what this is that when, not if, but when reversals come in the life, you see? Tatte nukampam susamikshamano. You see them as part of Krishna's mercy. This is important for preaching, right? Because there's going to be difficulties. You have to, you know, meet all kinds of people. Sometimes you get attacked. In the early days, they'd arrested devotees doing Harinam on the street. Not so much in America, but in Australia, I think in England it happened, you know. And what they asked Prabhupada what to do. Just keep chanting. You can chant in the jail. Keep chanting, and, you know, and Krishna will take care. And eventually they all got out, of course, you know. But it's always going to be like that. I mean, right now, the climate change, you never know what's going to happen, you know. And we can have a tsunami here if there's an earthquake right off the coast here. You know, Maharaj mentioned about the Marianas Trench, 35,000 miles deep, 35,000 feet, you know. But there's a deep one here also. And there's an earthquake. So you never know what will happen. So when that happens, we have to keep our wits about us and call out to Krishna, just like Gajendra, and feel reliant on. That's part of what surrender means, to always be confident of Krishna's protection. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to protect the body. Every one of us is going to leave the body at one point. But to protect our Krishna consciousness when that point comes, if we've trained properly and we you know, have fully surrendered to Krishna, and we've given up doing things that help us to forget Krishna. I mean, that's basically what advancement means. That there's a point where you don't want to do anything to make you forget Krishna. Rather, you want to do more and more stuff to help you remember Krishna, you know, and help others remember Krishna. So this is all, you know, very nice, and you know how we can get free of sin-free actions by remembering Gajendra in the morning. But I think I'm on the safe ground in saying if we simply become serious about attending the morning program and we meditate on all the meanings and, you know, everything that we say, the Tulsi prayer, all these words and the Gurvashtaka, it helps so much. Someone reminded me of a verse that I'd forgotten. You know, over the years I've remembered and forgotten verses. And it's such a sweet, it's a prayer by Rupa Goswami. Purushottamasya padito gokula chatitam kutasheka prema madandasyandam tanotamam chittamakanda. He's comparing his mind to a mango tree. May the mango tree of my mind always be sprinkled with the nectar of the Gokula pastimes of Krishna, of the Supreme Person, Krishna. Purushottamasya padito gokula chatitam kutasheka. May it be sprinkled. And thus, that my mind will then sprout these buds of mango flowers from which the pure nectar of pure love of God, it will always be trickling, you see, you know. And never gets old. You can chant it 10 times, you know. So this is what our legacy is. Our great Acharya, this is by Rupa Goswami, and gave us so much beautiful ways to remember Krishna. You read the Nectar of Devotion, all the varieties of love and different varieties of ways of relating to Krishna as a friend, as a parent, you know, as a servant, You know, of course, the conjugal, I don't know if you know this, but there's like part 2 of the Nectar of Devotion of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is called the Ujjvala Nilamani. It's all about the conjugal ras. You know, all these details of the different groups of gopis and how they're dressed and what their moods are. It's all very involved, you know. But he touches on that, of course, in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. But it's a vast topic, and it's there in the Ujjvala Nilamani. So this is what our culture is. It's all these details of service to Krishna, and how to identify, you know, ourselves as a servant of Krishna and try to somehow participate in that and get our pleasure in giving pleasure to Krishna. Bhajaniya Padama Purusha Sukhamatra Sasukatvam. This is a beautiful little motto by Jiva Goswami, which is equivalent to Anyabhilasha Dashunyam, and it means simply, very simple, Bhajaniya Padama Purusha, the worshipable Bhajaniya Supreme Person, that's Krishna. Sukha Matra, only his happiness. Bhajaniya Padama Sukha Matra Swasukatvam. We find our own happiness so wholly and solely in giving pleasure to Krishna. That's pure devotion, as simple as that. So if we're all, you know, always trying to perfect our service and thinking our next service and being very strict about our sadhana and stuff like that, we'll be able to purify the heart. So the natural love that's already there will come out and we'll be able to experience it. And then everything becomes that much sweeter. You can imagine if every name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If you're actually tasting, you know, Krishna's presence and the infinite sweetness of the name. That's why you find that why sleep? You know, the six Goswamis were just Gopi Bhavara Samatabla Kalola Magnomo. So we should aspire for that and try to, as hard as possible in the time remaining in our bodies. I have much less time than most of you do, hopefully. I don't want you to die prematurely. But every moment counts, avyarta kalatvam. So this is what I get from these verses, and I'm sorry, I didn't. I thought I had a purport in here, but I didn't. But that's the way it is sometimes. Any discussion, questions, near or far? Yes. Where are the mics?
Thank you for the class.
Hare Krishna.
So nectarian. I have a question. Maybe some comments, and please, if I am wrong, please correct me. This pastime, and also you mentioned, is true, or Maharaj Bharata, that like when we separated or like alone,
Yeah, danger.
Then is danger position. But I see, I meditate in it, that this this association should be like eternal.
Eternal?
Internal.
Internal.
Because of, for example, we can be in one room, live in one room, and don't know each other. This is like a material example. Or also, I know this example that when fly land on the lap of the king, this is like very close, but no association. It's only external. And so, how I understand, to awake our Krishna consciousness, that should be internal association, not external. Because of when we physically in one place, but what our mind? Where is our minds?
Yes. Well, I mean, the point is that neither Indrajumna Swami in his ashram, wherever he was meditating, or Bharat, sitting, they were alone. But of course, they were with Krishna, they were with Vishnu, they were thinking of him, and they were relating, But the problem is that the hazard there is that, the sage comes along, or in the case of Parikshit, he comes along, and then it's a little different you know, what was his name again? Shringi's father? Shamika Rishi. Shamika, yeah. Then he, so you know, that was a hazard. I mean, he wasn't so much hurt by that snake, big deal. He took that off. But his son was outraged. And because it was the beginning of Kali Yuga, the Brahmin, it said that he's like showing how the Brahmins are going to get degraded. Because he had the power, but not the discrimination. He was a young boy, you know, so he curses the king, the emperor, who's doing so much good for the world. But you're right. In other words, when we're doing japa, for instance, that's perfectly okay. You know, as long as you're not going to fall asleep or something, go find a quiet place. I remember when I was in Brooklyn, we had so many devotees in the temple that there would be like gradually everyone would be chanting louder and louder so that they could hear themselves. And so, I don't need this. So I went off to a place where they had big bags of rice and everything, and I was sitting on one of the things there. And when the temple president came, he was just joking with me. He says, "Dr. Tom, what are you doing here?" You know, he just, because he saw I was chanting japa. But you have to have a proper place to chant so that you can hear properly. You know, that's why I've had these noise canceling headphones, which I don't need anymore. When we had more devotees, it was too loud, and I was, you know. But that has to be there. But the point is that we need to also come together and have the kirtan. You know, that's the whole idea, the strength of the kirtan, you know, together. And also this Bhagavatam class, you know, it's sharing. And I always like to hear, we're going to have the reading here, you know, to read together is wonderful. So both should be there. There's a place for just you and Krishna and your mind, you know. But there's also a very important place to get together and share and read together, and you know, and uplift each other. And the epitome of that is Harinam, Sankirtan, either within the temple or outside the temple. You know, you're hearing, chanting, you're relating to the devotees, and you know, that's really the lifeblood of this movement, is the congregational chanting. Everything follows from that. Anything else? Vijay, you there?
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, I'm here.
Got anything?
Yes, in the translation to text 17 through 24.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Go ahead.
The names of the devotees who are being mentioned go as follows: Lord Brahma, Narada Muni, Lord Shiva, and Prahlad Maharaj. And then at the very end, the name of Dhruva Maharaj appears.
Yeah.
So if we concentrate our minds with great attention upon these devotees, then we will become free from all sinful reactions. That is what being promised at the very beginning of the translation. So
yes.
Based on all of this, sorry?
Go ahead.
So based on all of this, my question is, and I need to say the following: I understand that, okay, concentrate our minds on Lord Brahma, the engineer of the universe, Narada Muni, son of Lord Brahma, all exalted personalities, Lord Shiva, the best of Vaishnavas. But what confuses me a little is that the names of Prahlad Maharaj and Dhruva Maharaj are appearing in this translation. So my exact question is, why concentrating our minds with great attention on Prahlad and Dhruva Maharaj?
Well,
that is my question.
Yeah, I mean, this is quite a list, and I think that if we can concentrate, you know, really, really, really nicely on our chanting, japa, we'll get the same result, or even more, because he said, what's the result here? you get free of free from all sinful reactions.
reactions.
You get free of all sinful reactions. That's great, but our ultimate motive is love for Krishna. And the idea is each one of these things, you see, it's like you may remember one thing. You may remember Prahlad Maharaj, but you just don't remember the form of Prahlad, right? You're meant to remember all the whole pastimes. You got all those prayers, and you know the whole thing. Each one of these can inspire a remembrance of the environment that they include. So it's a whole, you know, it's more than just these individual things, you know. And they say, oh, I remembered everything, you know, the Kaustubha gem invited, but I forgot to remember the Kaumudiki club. Could I still get free of my sinful reactions? It doesn't work like that. He's giving a way in which you can become absorbed in the transcendence here, you know. And he who hears them, my unlimited auspicious activity would yield piety to him who hears them. The sun, just remembering the sun, the moon, the fire. Yeah, that'll be fine as long as you remember that Krishna creates the sun and the sunshine, right? From the Bhagavad Gita. Because, anyway, he's giving a whole list here so that someone can be fully absorbed just by reading the list. I mean, but this is not our particular path as followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You know, he recommended the Bhagavatam, but ultimately the essence of it is there in the last verse, Nama Sankirtanan Yasya. You know, it describes Nama Sankirtan, the very last verse of Bhagavatam, as a lesson. So I wouldn't worry if, you know, that we need to try to remember all these things. I think we did remember them. We just read this how many verses here? This is like 4 or 5 verses, right? Yeah, this is 17 to 24. That's 8 verses. So we read them this morning, and I think we're in good shape. But for us, you know, the rest of the day, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare. I think Krishna will be pleased with us if we can remember the name Krishna and our service to Krishna, these beautiful deities, and like that, you know. So that all of these things are related. They're all transcendental. You know, Prahlad, you know, just his pastimes, his whole, you know, relation to Nrsingadev, his teachings to his friends, his prayers, all of that. If you think of Prahlad, you think of those, and you want to delve into the Bhagavatam and check out the prayers or whatever. So this is the whole point of these things, is that they lead you into Krishna Katha and different pastimes of Krishna and his devotees. And so that's what's being said, because there's a million other things that we can think of that this Kali Yuga is trying to throw at us. But if you make this a subject matter of your thought by carefully thinking about and reading about them and thinking about them, then you're on the safe side and you'll be free of all sinful reactions. And I think we have to adjourn.
Yes, but in accordance with your answer, the topmost object for us to focus on and concentrate on is the Maha Mantra, no?
Absolutely. And especially now, we're leading up to Gaur Purnim, we can remember Lord Chaitanya chanting that Maha Mantra in so many ways. And
yes, exactly.
Okay. All right, I got to go, Babu. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.